It's a warm summer's evening in central London. Richard Branson, the British entrepreneur, and Alexander Usyk, the Ukrainian heavyweight champion, are at an event in Trafalgar Square. What brings these unlikely individuals from opposite sides of Europe together in London?
Of all things, it's the recreation of the Mariupol mosaic behind Usyk, created 57 years earlier in the Soviet Union. This mosaic was an important piece of art that rebelled against the Soviet Union, using one of the few methods available to people under the yoke of the Soviet Union to express thoughts, beliefs and emotions that the state did. The Mariupol mosaic, or the kestrel in English, depicts a kestrel frozen in mid-hover above stylized waves, a dynamic blend of folk motifs and avant-garde geometry. Its soaring bird became a visual metaphor for freedom, resilience and the creative spirit of the Ukrainian 60s generation. The mosaic was severely damaged during the Russian siege of Mariupol as they invaded Ukraine, reducing a once lovely port city into ruins. This mosaic was created by a woman by the name of Alla Horska. Alla Horska was a Ukrainian artist and Soviet dissident. How is it that this Ukrainian artist ends up being murdered by the KGB? Well, born on the 18th of September 1929 in Yalta, Crimea, to a Russophone family, Horska's mother, Elena, worked as a caregiver in Yalta's children's sanatorium, and her father led studios in Yalta, Moscow and Leningrad, the latter where her family moved to in her infancy. Alla Horska grew up in a family deeply tied to the Soviet Union and would have learnt the power of art in telling stories. The family was still living in Leningrad during the Nazi Germany invasion of the Soviet Union and was stuck in the siege of Leningrad, surviving the horrors and starvation. Alla was only 11 years old but endured the siege for 2 winters with her mother before evacuating to Almaty. At the end of 1943, Alla's father was offered to lead the Kiev film studio. The family moved to Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. Their apartment quickly became a hub for Ukraine's budding dissident circles. Between 1946 and 1954, Horska excelled at Kiev's Shevchenko Art School and State Art Institution, graduating with top honours. It was during her studies that she met her husband, Viktor Zaretsky, a fellow Ukrainian artist, and by 1959 her series on Donbass miners earned her admission to the Union of Artists. During her art career, she embraced monumental paintings, mosaics, stained glass murals, blending folk motifs with avant-garde vision. Her notable works include Tree of Life, alongside Borivieta in Mariupol, Prometheus in Donetsk, and Victory Flag in Krasnodon. In 1965, Horska and collaborators unveiled an ambitious stained glass at Kiev University called Shevchenko, or Mother in English. This was tragically destroyed before unveiling due to the Soviet ideological censorship. Pretty typical, Soviets can't handle a bit of stained glass. During Khrushchev's fall, where repression and censorship in the Soviet Union were relaxed due to Khrushchev's policies of de-Stalinization, Ukrainian culture began to revive, and Horska was a central figure in the 1960s Ukrainian cultural revival, known as the Shityeskinsky, or 60ers in English, which labelled people of the 60s. This group rejected Soviet artistic dogma and promoted Ukrainian language, history and identity. Aya co-founded the Sushashnik Creative Youth Club in Kiev, alongside writers, poets and fellow artists. It became a hub for underground art, literature and political discourse. My favourite activity was that Aya, alongside Visly Shimonenko and Les Taniuk, uncovered NKVD mass gravesites of Stalin-era murder victims in Bykivnia. Bykivnia was one of the endless unmarked mass gravesites where the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, disposed of thousands of murdered humans just trying to live their lives. In doing this, she helped expose Soviet crimes to city officials. In 1968, she signed the famous letter of protest 139 that was sent to Leonid Brezhnev, condemning illegal arrests and trials of Ukrainian dissidents. She continued to correspond with political prisoners in the face of bullying. Each act deepened further scrutiny by the KGB, but her voice had never wavered. The Soviet state cracked down on Horska, who was expelled twice from the Union of Artists. She was under constant surveillance from the scumbag KGB, and her phone was tapped. On the 28th of November 1970, Horska went to Vasilikiv, near Kiev, to borrow a sewing machine from her father-in-law, but it never arrived. Several days later, her body was found in the house of her father-in-law, the very house she was expected to visit. The cause of death was stated as blunt force trauma from a hammer. Her father-in-law had been found dead on the nearby railway tracks. The Soviet Union claimed it was a domestic murder-suicide. However, her family and fellow dissidents knew the truth, that she had been assassinated by the KGB. On December the 7th, 1970, Alla Horska's funeral in Kiev turned into a defiant rally for Ukrainian intelligentsia against the ruling Communist Party. The Soviet authorities kept a record of all those who attended the funeral and added them to a list of those who allegedly threatened the security of the USSR, and arrested those that had spoken.
38 years after Horska's murder, the State Archives at the Security Service of Ukraine declassified Fund 16. It revealed a chilling pattern of surveillance, intimidation, and demonstrating that there was a reasonable evidence that Horska had been murdered by the KGB. Alla, to this day, is often called the soul of the 60s. Horska's life represents the intersection of the artistic brilliance and moral resistance. Her works are today preserved in major Ukrainian museums such as the National Art Museum in Kiev, to international collections like the Rutgers University's Dodge Gallery. Alla Horska, a Ukrainian, an avant-garde pioneer, a fearless human rights activist, and a tragic martyr. Another door closed, another truth revealed. As always, let me know of more unknown Soviet crimes against humanity that you would love to know more about below. Until next time, thank you for watching and keep an eye out for my next upcoming videos.